Hello, hola, bonjour, ciao. Welcome to isayitright.com Foreign Language Podcast.
Thank you for joining us today for show number 9, I Say It Right in Any Language. Our podcast today will contain 2 segments. I Say It Right for Real Estate Professionals, excerpts from Real Estate Radio Show podcast, and Say It Right Real Estate Common Terms. Hello, I'm your I Say It Right host, Phrase Girl. Today our podcast is Say It Right in Spanish for Real Estate Professionals. Following is excerpts from my interview with Real Estate Radio Show host Greg Welch. Our show today is about language solutions for career professionals. Let's get started.
Hi, Real Estate Radio fans. We have a special guest for you today, Betty Chapman with I Say It Right. Betty Chapman is a successful businesswoman who, along with Clyde Peters, created the Say It Right series of foreign language travel phrase books, along with the revolutionary EPLS vowel symbol system. Betty, a.k.a. Phrase Girl, is also the voice behind I Say It Right audio language podcast, featured in iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and other popular podcasting directories. Welcome, Betty. Thank you for joining us on the show today.
Hola, bonjour, ciao, Greg. How are you? And thanks for having me on your show.
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. And yourself?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Betty, before we get started, would you mind telling our listeners just a little bit about yourself?
I live in Henderson, Nevada, and I'm a co-founder of EPLS, which is Easily Pronounced Language Systems. I come from a background of military. My parents were stationed in Hawaii for 10 years, and so my brother and sister and I grew up in Hawaii. And from there, we went on to Japan and 2 or 3 other duty stations. Then I got married and was stationed in London and visited Europe. So we have a background of travel and kind of a unique blending of traveling with interest in language that we fostered and grew over the years. And my brother, in traveling to Paris, realized that he, after several visits, could not speak the language. And he was very frustrated about this. And, you go to the bookstores, you buy a book, and then you try to speak the language, and the local people or native speakers kind of look at you a little strange, and you stop speaking. So he began to decide that there's a better way. And I, because of my travels and enjoyment of foreign countries, was very interested in what he was doing. Eventually, he created a system, and we went on to work with that system, and we've done that here in Nevada for a number of years. On top of that, my mom, who also lives here in Nevada, in her 70s, she was able to input the vowel symbols into the system on the computer and help us create our phrase books as we went from one language to another. We continue to work in languages.
Well, thank you, Betty. I'd like you to tell us a little bit about I Say It Right.
Oh, I'd love to. As I said, we continued our love of languages, and Clyde began to really get into developing a phonetic system that would work so that you would be able to speak foreign languages. He thought there had to be an easier way, so let's reinvent the wheel. And he began to work with that using what we already know in English. And that is the best way to invent something new, is take something that is old and that you're used to and you understand, and then add to it and invent the new system. Then we reached out to companies to see if we could get it published. And McGraw-Hill answered the call, and they began publishing and distributing our phrase books in 2005 and continue to add new languages every year. We have 14 languages. And the exciting part about that, Greg, is that all these languages use the same basic phonetic system.
And you were able to come across those in each language and then isolate them?
Yes, because that's how we learned when we were children at 2 and 3 and 4. We didn't understand why we said a certain word a certain way. We just did it. We heard it first. Pronunciation has always been underrated. It's underrated in school. It's underrated in the book. They'll give you a way to pronounce it in a phrase book, and then it'll change from one language to another, and it is a new language. Our system is not a new language. It is English, a modified English alphabet. So anyone who speaks English would be able to pick up a phrase book or one of our products, a tailored solution, and be able to say a word or phrase and say it well. And that is important.
Well, thank you for that insight. Now, Betty, the next question I had really was about how you've taken your system and are able to apply it to the real estate field for those that are out there trying to buy and sell homes with folks from different nationalities. Could you kind of get into that a little bit?
Yes. The reason that we can do this is because we're able to customize the language. What I'm trying to say is this. If you gave me a list of words, and let's say they were biology terms, or let's say common realtor terms, that you needed to have a way to pronounce those and pronounce them well. I have a client that's coming into town. He's looking for a home. He's Chinese. And although I don't speak Chinese, I want to be able to say some general things like, hello, how are you? I would like to help you. There's a show down on the strip. It is called, and be able to say that very clearly to where that Chinese prospective buyer understands what it is you're saying. And native speakers really, really do take notice when you are trying to speak their language, but you are doing it well. And so in our world, we have been on that curve for quite a while. We started with the 2004 Greek Olympics. And for that Olympics, we custom tailored Greek for the entire media going to Greece to cover the Olympics. We're very excited about that. But in the closing ceremonies for those Olympics, the president said that it was the first time in history that the media made an attempt to speak Greek and did it well. That was really wonderful to hear. Then following that, 2006, we were at the Turin, Italy Olympics with our phrase book. 2008, the U.S. Olympics purchased a Say It Right in Chinese for the coaches, their staff, and athlete. More recently, 2014, the World Cup in Brazil was just a fabulous event. And soccer is being played more and more around the world and getting more and more people following it. So what we did for them is we customized on our Say It Right 004 podcast common terms and phrases that they would hear during the game that were being played, the soccer games. That was pretty cool. And here in Nevada and in California, we customized terms for the Clark County Fire Department. A lot of times they would go out on a call. They didn't necessarily want to learn Spanish, the entire language, but they came upon a person that needed help. And the way they explained it to me is we had to put a collar on the neck of a person who had been injured. And that person had so much fear in their eyes that they wanted to be able to say that they were fire and paramedics, that they were there to help them, not to be afraid, and that this was going to help them feel better, and then they would get them to the hospital. None of these needed a response from the individual that was being helped, but the fire and paramedics were able to help that person feel a little more comfortable and understand what was being done to them. And then for the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, we customized Say It Right in Spanish for law enforcement. And for the Mirage Hotel and Casino on the Strip, we customized Say It Right in Spanish for hotel security personnel. So that's where we can help with the real estate industry. What we'd like to do is customize some general greetings, which we've done for you, and add to that some common real estate terms in Spanish. And you would be able to access them from iTunes or Stitcher Radio, and then download the PDF on isayitright.com or on my interview page at realestateradioshow.com.
Thank you, Betty. I really wanted to get a better understanding of how the phonetics of your system work. Could you kind of go into that a little bit with me?
I'd love to. Say It Right offers a simple and effective method of pronunciation and communication. Greg, anyone who has ever stumbled through a phrase book trying to communicate in a foreign language will appreciate Say It Right. This is why. Say It Right is consistent, it's clear, it isolates vowels, and that is what language is made up of. When you hit those vowels in any language, from Spanish to Russian to Greek, Dutch, Thai, when you say A as in ace and you hit that vowel, the native speaker understands you.
Now, Betty, in the Italian book that I happen to have in front of me here, I also noticed that you do have a few breakdowns for the consonants, so it's not just vowel-based?
Yes, we call them the EPLS consonants because our system is easily pronounced language systems. So every language has some nuances. However, consonants normally do not change. You take a T, it's always a T, D, K. Those things don't normally change. So we really don't have to do too much. Those, if you see them in English and you see them in another language, you're going to know how to pronounce that. But it's the vowels that have a problem. But if there is a nuance in a certain language, we talk about it. We explain it in our phrase books, and it's usually, very easy to catch on as to what we want you to say. And the native speaker will understand you. Now, we always say there's no replacement for getting in country, speaking with a native speaker to hone your skills in speaking the language. But to actually be able to get up and running, speak the language, and be understood, that's where I Say It Right and Say It Right products come in very handy and will enhance everything about your trip, your vacation, your learning of language, and your career. It is the first system based on sound. We learn by how we hear, and this system enhances our ability to process sound used by native speakers.
Is that why in the beginning of the book, it's the basics of it is teaching us to use from what I can tell here, the vowel system, the consonants, and then that's when it breaks into keywords and phrase maker?
That's a good question, Greg. We laid it out phonetically, pronounce one syllable at a time. And if you're looking at the book, you'll see an accent over one of those syllables, and that tells you to stress. So we've got everything taken care of for you. You just have to concentrate on speaking and pronunciation, which are very important to language. And that is where most of us failed. We took maybe a year or two in college of French or Spanish or another language, but when we got out of school, we could not speak it. And that usually stops people from going forward and really getting excited about languages. It eases apprehension about communicating in a foreign language. The other important addition in learning a language is being able to create your own sentences. And that is what the phrase maker is in the book that you're holding. Customize it yourself. For instance, our phrase maker is I want. That's the subject and the verb of the sentence, I want. And then it gives you choices. I want some coffee. I want some tea. I want some water. I would like. That is the exciting addition of the phrase maker to learning. It's not just repetition. As a realtor, communication is at the heart of turning a potential client into a happy property owner.
Thank you, Betty. That's awesome advice.
You're welcome.
Betty, next up, would you tell us about an online resource or service that your company offers?
Oh, yes. Really excited that this year we were able to take all of our paperback phrase books. So we have 14 languages, and our publisher McGraw-Hill has placed them in the digital format. So now you can download all the languages to your Kindle or to your iPad. However, to the iPad, you have to download an app, but then that'll allow you access to it. And that is a very exciting, ideal way to have students or anyone have it with you, because the thing you can do with an iPad or Kindle or any of your mobile devices, you're able to highlight, you're able to make little notes, you're able to have specific pages. So if, as I said before, you're having some Japanese clients come in and you want to just remember how to say thank you, just thank you, or hello, or different things. I speak very little Japanese. You can notate it. That's kind of cool. We're very excited to have 14 titles, all digital now. And then on top of that, this year, because of the World Cup and because of our relationship with the U.S. soccer team, we started our I Say It Right podcast. And that is where my AKA Phrase Girl, she is an avatar of language, and she will help you learn a language, have some fun with it, learn some important terms or phrases. We work with current events, and it was very fun to do 4 podcasts for Brazilian Portuguese. And we're looking forward to doing more podcasts for the U.S. Olympics next year. So that's very exciting. And they're fun to do, all languages, especially when you're working along with current events that are happening all over the world. And language is very, very important.
Yeah, your soccer series was really cool, I have to admit.
So we'll be doing something with the Olympic events as well.
Betty, I know on your podcast you offer a fast fact. So if you have one for us, that'd be great.
Yes, I have a couple of fast facts for you, Greg. There are real estate companies in Nevada positioning themselves for the future buyers and employing hundreds of agents who speak Japanese, Greek, Dutch, German, Spanish, and more. And recently, a survey of over 3,000 realtors revealed that China is the number 1 foreign buyer of single-family homes in the U.S.
Wow, Betty, those are some amazing numbers that I wasn't even aware of. Betty, how can our listeners find out more about I Say It Right?
Well, they can visit us at isayitright.com for up-to-date information and new podcasts, because we like to get our podcasts out monthly. We have a newsletter. And if you click on About, you'll be able to look at the books and go right to Amazon.com and see inside the book.
Oh, thank you. We'll also have links to your website on your personal podcast page. Betty, I thank you for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Greg, and look forward to seeing you again. And mahalo, and have a lovely day.
You too. Take care.
Okay, that was the excerpts from Real Estate Radio Show and my interview. And now I'd like to take you to real estate common terms and Spanish greetings. Remember that it is important to show appreciation and interest in another person's language and culture, particularly when doing business. A few well-pronounced phrases can make a great impression. Here are some basic greetings in Spanish, and they will be followed by common real estate terms.
Hello. Hola. How are you? ¿Cómo está? Fine, very well. Muy bien. And you? ¿Y usted? Goodbye. Adiós. Good morning. Buenos días. Good afternoon. Buenas tardes. Good evening. Good night. Buenas noches. Mr. Señor. Mrs. Señora. Miss. Señorita. Yes. Sí. No. No. Please. Por favor. Thank you. Gracias. Excuse me. Perdón. Con permiso. I speak a little Spanish. Hablo un poco español. Do you understand English? ¿Comprende inglés? Real estate. Bienes raíces. Broker. Corredor. Tax. Impuesto. Title. Título. Down payment. Anticipo. Depósito. Home buyer. Comprador de casa. Buyer. Comprador. Seller. Vendedor. Earnest money. Arras. Escrow. Plica. Depósito. Grantor. Otorgante. Cedente. Grantee. Cesionario.
land, terreno, lessee, arrendatario, lessor, arrendador, loan, préstamo, payment, abono, pago, property taxes, contribuciones prediales, impuestos a la propiedad, address, dirección, appraisal, evaluación, avalúo, closing, cierre, contract, contrato, foreclosure, ejecución hipotecaria, juicio hipotecario, Homeowners Association Fee, cuota de la Asociación de Propietarios, interest, interés, lender lien, derecho de retención por el prestador, gravamen del prestador, mortgage, hipoteca.
Thank you for tuning in to our show. Gracias, merci, grazie, obrigado, and a warm mahalo. Please visit isayitright.com and sign up to receive our monthly newsletter for up-to-date information. To perfect your language pronunciation and accent, you must listen closely to native speakers and adjust your speech accordingly. The podcast is provided as is, without any representations or warranties, express or implied either by EPLS or third-party views and or recommendations. Visit isayitright.com for full terms and information.